The Syrian sun beat down mercilessly as Marine Corps Lieutenant Samantha Sam Patton stepped off the transport helicopter. Dust swirled around her combat boots, coating her uniform in a fine layer of grit. This remote outpost, barely visible on most military maps, would be her home for the foreseeable future. After the controversial mission in Mosul that had gotten her reassigned, Sam knew this was her last chance to prove herself worthy of command. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. The base commander, a weathered colonel with more scars than patience, barely acknowledged her arrival. "We've got SEAL Team 6 running recon 15 clicks north," he said, pointing to a map dotted with terrain markers. "Your job is to monitor. Comms and stay the hell out of their way." Sam nodded, swallowing her frustration. She'd commanded tank battalions through 3 combat tours, yet here she was, relegated to babysitting radio equipment. Later that evening, she met Senior Chief Christopher Mattis Johnson, the legendary SEAL Team 6 operator named after the revered General James Mattis. His reputation preceded him, 5 distinguished service crosses and more confirmed kills than anyone dared to count. "Lieutenant," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "Heard about Mosul. Gutsy move." "Not gutsy enough to keep my command," Sam replied, the bitterness evident in her voice. "Sometimes the brass doesn't appreciate initiative until they need it," Mattis said before briefing her on their mission parameters. His team, led by Senior Chief Kyle Petraeus Williams, would be gathering intelligence on a suspected weapons. Cache, standard procedure, minimal risk, or so they thought. The next morning, Sam sat monitoring communications when frantic chatter erupted from the radio. Petraeus and his team had walked into an ambush. Enemy forces had surrounded them, cutting off their escape routes with frightening precision. "Taking heavy fire!" Petraeus's voice crackled through the static. "Johnson, we're pinned down. 3 men wounded, ammunition critical." Sam grabbed her tactical map, calculating positions while the base scrambled to mount a rescue, but minutes later, the unthinkable happened. "No choice. We're surrendering," came Petraeus's strained voice. "Tell Johnson, white flag raised." The command center fell silent. SEAL Team 6 operators didn't surrender. Ever. Colonel Barnes slammed his fist on the table. "Air support is 2 hours out. They'll be executed or worse by then." Sam stared at the map, noticing something the others had missed. "Sir, there's an abandoned M1 Abrams at Checkpoint Delta. Our forces had to leave it behind during last month's tactical retreat." "Inoperable," Barnes dismissed. "Fuel lines damaged, main gun disabled." "With respect, sir, I can make it work," Sam insisted. "I specialized in Abrams systems before my transfer." "Denied, Lieutenant. Stand down." Sam nodded, obediently, then slipped away the moment the colonel turned his attention elsewhere. She found Specialist Rodriguez in the motor pool, a mechanic whose grandfather had served with Medal of Honor recipient Cleto Rodriguez in World War II. "I need your help," she told him without preamble. "And it will probably end both our careers." Rodriguez grinned. "The tank at Delta? Already packed my tools?" They took a Humvee to the checkpoint, finding the massive Abrams partially hidden under camouflage netting. The desert heat had been unkind to the abandoned war machine, but Sam's trained eye spotted potential. "Fuel lines damaged but not severed," she assessed, crawling beneath the massive treads. "Main gun's offline, but the coaxial machine gun might work. We can't fight a battalion, but we can create one hell of a distraction." For 2 hours, they worked frantically. Rodriguez proved to be a mechanical genius, bypassing damaged systems with ingenious workarounds. Sam calculated the most direct route to the SEAL team's position, a ridge that would put them directly above the enemy forces. "This terrain is heavily mined," Rodriguez warned, pointing to intelligence reports. "That's counting on," Sam replied, her face set with determination. "We're going to use their defenses against them." The engine roared to life just as frantic radio calls announced that the captive SEALs were being moved. Sam climbed into the commander's position, muscle memory taking over as her hands found the familiar controls. "Last chance to back out," she told Rodriguez. "And miss the court-martial? No way, ma'am." The tank lurched forward, crushing scrub brush beneath its massive treads as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Sam's mind raced with lessons learned from studying General Norman Schwarzkopf's desert warfare tactics. Create confusion. Magnify your presence. Exploit psychological weaknesses. They crested the hill just as the sun began to set, the tank's silhouette massive against the blood-red sky. Below, they could see the SEAL team being led away by captors who never expected an armored assault from above. "Hold on," Sam warned, then plunged the tank down the hillside at full speed. The first mines detonated beneath them, the specialized armor absorbing impacts that would have obliterated lighter vehicles. Each explosion created a chain reaction, setting off more mines in a spectacular display that made it seem like an entire armored division was charging down the hill. The enemy forces scattered in panic. In the confusion, Petraeus and his team seized the opportunity, overpowering their guards and reclaiming their weapons. Sam swung the tank between the SEALs and the regrouping enemy, providing cover as Rodriguez laid down suppressive fire with the coaxial machine gun. The extraction helicopter arrived minutes later, touching down behind the protective bulk of the Abrams. "Go!" Sam shouted over the radio as she positioned the tank to shield the evacuation. "We'll hold them off." The SEALs boarded with their wounded, Petraeus the last to leave. He locked eyes with Sam through the tank's vision block and offered a solemn salute before the helicopter lifted off. With their primary mission complete, Sam reversed the tank up the hill, its systems failing as the last drops of fuel were consumed. They abandoned it at the crest, rigging the remaining ammunition to detonate and cover their escape on foot. 3 days later, back at base, Sam stood at attention before Colonel Barnes, prepared for the court-martial that would end her military career. Instead, she received something unexpected: a commendation. The brass has a funny way of redefining insubordination when it results in saved lives, Barnes explained. "Johnson insisted on putting you up for the Silver Star." In the corner, Mattis Johnson nodded approvingly. "The Sherman," he declared, bestowing a new call sign that referenced the legendary General William Tecumseh Sherman. "Because you sure as hell knew how to bring the heat when it mattered most." Sam smiled, realizing that sometimes the most effective command decisions couldn't be found in any military handbook. Sometimes they came from the courage to drive a tank over the hill when everyone else had already surrendered. The harsh fluorescent lights of the intelligence center cast shadows across Special Warfare Intelligence Analyst Emily Eisenhower Cooper's face as she stared intently at the satellite feed. Her fingers froze over the keyboard when the images clarified. There, in the grainy footage of a remote Afghan village, she could clearly identify 6 figures being marched at gunpoint through a dusty square. "Confirm identification," her supervisor demanded, hovering at her shoulder. Emily swallowed hard. "SEAL Team 8, Bravo Squad, sir. Positive ID on all members." She didn't mention that one of those figures was her brother, Lieutenant Commander James Cooper. That information was already flagged in her personnel file, a potential conflict of interest that was about to complicate everything. Colonel Frank Bradley, nicknamed after the famed World War II General Omar Bradley, rubbed his weathered face as he studied the tactical display. Intelligence reports indicated that high-ranking Taliban commanders were converging on the village of Korband. Whatever information the SEALs possessed, it was valuable enough to draw significant enemy attention. The team was led by Commander Jackson Patton Miller, Emily reported, keeping her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Last communication indicated they were surrounded and running low on ammunition. "And now we have confirmation. They've surrendered," Bradley said, his tone making the word sound like a profanity. Navy SEALs weren't supposed to surrender. Ever. Emily studied the topographical map of the region, her mind racing through possible extraction scenarios. "Sir, I'd like to volunteer for the rescue operation. I've spent 3 years mapping this region and speak the local dialects." Bradley's response was immediate. "Request denied, Cooper. Your intelligence, not operations. And your brother is among the captives. That automatically disqualifies you." The official rescue plan that emerged from the subsequent briefing was cautious and methodical, a 72-hour operation that would require approval from 3 separate command structures. Emily knew with cold certainty that the SEALs wouldn't survive that long. That night, she made the most difficult decision of her military career. Using her security clearance, she accessed classified files on forgotten Soviet installations in the region. One report had particularly caught her attention months earlier, an abandoned depot roughly 30 miles from Korband that satellite imagery suggested might contain armored vehicles. With a small pack of essentials and her sidearm, Emily slipped past the perimeter of the base. The court-martial that would inevitably follow didn't matter, not if it meant saving her brother and his team. The depot was partially concealed in the side of a mountain, its entrance overgrown with vegetation. Emily's flashlight beam cut through. Decades of dust as she forced open the rusted door, revealing the massive silhouette of a Soviet-era T-72 tank. The machine sat like a sleeping beast, abandoned during the hasty Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you," a gravelly voice echoed from the shadows. "Engine's likely to blow if you don't prime it properly." Emily whirled, weapon drawn, to find herself facing a bearded man in his 50s, his weathered face suggesting years of hard living. "Master Sergeant Taylor Reynolds," he introduced himself with casual indifference to her aimed pistol. "Most. Call me MacArthur." "After General Douglas MacArthur," Emily said, slowly lowering her weapon. "Your Army Rangers, Desert Storm veteran." "Among other things," he acknowledged. "Now why is a naval intelligence analyst breaking into an abandoned Soviet depot in the middle of the night?" Something in his steady gaze made Emily decide on honesty. "SEAL Team 8 is being held in Korband. The official rescue timeline will get them killed." "So you figured you'd drive a tank straight into a Taliban stronghold, alone?" MacArthur's tone was incredulous, but his eyes held something else. Respect, perhaps, or at least interest. "Unless you have a better idea," Emily challenged. The slow smile that spread across MacArthur's face changed everything. "As it happens, I do, but we'll need help." By dawn, they had recruited Farah, a local woman who worked as a translator on base. Her family had been killed by the same Taliban faction, now holding the SEALs, giving her both motivation and invaluable knowledge of the terrain. For the next 12 hours, MacArthur gave Emily a crash course in tank operations. The aging T-72s. Controls were nothing like the American models she'd studied in training simulations, but the fundamentals were similar enough. By nightfall, she could maneuver the massive vehicle with surprising competence. "Not bad, Eisenhower." MacArthur nodded, approvingly, using the nickname she'd earned for her strategic thinking. "You might actually survive this crazy mission." The journey to Korband pushed both crew and machine to their limits. Twice, they had to hide the tank under camouflage netting as enemy patrols passed within yards of their position. The aging Soviet engine protested the harsh mountain terrain, overheating on steep inclines and threatening to fail completely. During a necessary stop to make repairs, Emily asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know my brother." MacArthur's hands stilled on the engine components. "I know what it means to leave men behind," he said quietly. "Made that mistake once in '91. Won't make it again." As dawn broke on the EA third day, they reached the final ridge overlooking Korband. Through binoculars, Emily could see activity in the village center. The SEAL team was being prepared for transport, likely to a more secure location where high-level interrogations would begin. "It's now or never," MacArthur said, climbing into the gunner's position while Farah took up observation on a nearby ridge to signal enemy movements. Emily started the engine, feeling the massive machine rumble to life beneath her. Fear and determination warred within her as she guided the tank up the final slope that would put them in full view of the village. "Remember," MacArthur cautioned, "we're not here to win a war. We create chaos, extract the team, and get out." With a deep breath, Emily pushed the throttle forward. The T-72 crested the hill with a roar of diesel engines, silhouetted against the morning sun. Below, Taliban fighters froze at the unexpected sight of armor appearing where none should exist. The tank rolled down the hillside, gaining momentum as its machine guns opened fire on enemy positions. In the confusion, Emily spotted Lieutenant Powell, named after Colin Powell, among the prisoners. The moment the SEALs realized what was happening, they moved as one, overpowering their surprised guards and seizing their weapons. Emily drove the tank directly into the center of the village, positioning it between enemy reinforcements and the escaping SEALs. The aging Soviet machine became a moving fortress, its bulk providing cover as the special operators regrouped and fought their way toward the extraction point Farah had identified. The battle was brief, but intense. The T-72's systems began to fail as RPG fire damaged its track assembly. MacArthur used their remaining ammunition to destroy an enemy technical vehicle before they were forced to abandon the tank. "She's done her part," he said with surprising affection, patting the tank's interior before they joined the SEALs for the final push to extraction. Emily found herself fighting alongside her brother, the intelligence analyst, and the SEAL commander, moving with the synchronicity of siblings who had trained together since childhood. Farah's tribal contacts provided transportation away from the battle zone, and by nightfall, they had reached a secure location where evacuation was possible. 2 weeks later, Emily stood at attention before a formal review board at Naval Headquarters. Her unauthorized mission had violated multiple regulations and directly contravened orders. It had also rescued 6 elite operators and yielded intelligence that led to the capture of 3 high-value targets. "Specialist Cooper," Colonel Bradley addressed her formally, "your actions were reckless, insubordinate, and completely outside the chain of command." Emily maintained her forward gaze, prepared for the dishonorable discharge that would end her military career. "They were also," Bradley continued, his expression softening slightly, "extraordinarily effective. The Joint Chiefs have taken a personal interest in your case. Instead of court-martial, Emily received an unexpected offer. Specialized training for operations that required her particular combination of intelligence expertise and unconventional thinking. Lieutenant Powell personally recommended her for the program, citing her exceptional ability to assess impossible situations and find viable solutions. As for Master Sergeant MacArthur Reynolds, he disappeared as mysteriously as he had appeared. Rumors persisted of a grizzled veteran living in the mountains, occasionally training selected operators in unconventional warfare tactics with a particular fondness for vintage Soviet equipment. 6 months later, Emily received a postcard from an unmarked location. It contained only a rough sketch of a T-72 tank cresting a hill and a simple message. "Some hills are worth climbing. Some surrenders worth refusing." She kept the card as a reminder that sometimes the most important battles are fought by those willing to drive a tank over the hill when everyone else has already surrendered.